Good evening, everybody. I'm Nate Eaton. This is Courtroom Insider coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, from CrimeCon on a little bit early tonight because we have some events later on, but I wanted to come on and it's been a very busy day. Chad Daybell has been sentenced to death for the murders of his first wife and his second wife's two youngest children. The sentence was handed down after an Idaho jury unanimously agreed that imposing the death penalty would be a just revolution to the triple murder case. The sentence marks the end of a grim investigation that began with the search for two missing children in 2019. The next year, their bodies were found buried in Daybell's eastern Idaho yard. Daybell, wearing a dress, shirt, and tie, sat with his hands in his lap at the defense table. He showed no emotion when the sentence was announced. Both Daybell and his new wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, were charged with multiple counts of murder, conspiracy, and grand theft in connection with the deaths of Vallow Daybell's two youngest children, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan. They were also charged with conspiracy and murder for the death of Daybell's first wife, Tammy Daybell. During a nearly 2-month-long trial, prosecutors said Chad Daybell promoted unusual spiritual beliefs, including apocalyptic prophecies and tales of possession of evil spirits, in order to justify the killings. Daybell's defense attorney, John Pryor, argued during the trial there wasn't enough evidence to tie Daybell to the killings and suggested Vallow Daybell's brother, Alex Cox, was the culprit. Cox died in late 2019 and was never charged. Vallow Daybell was convicted last year and sentenced to life in prison without parole. During the sentencing hearing, Pryor asked the jurors to judge Daybell on his life before he met Vallow Daybell, describing her as a bomb that blew him off the trajectory of an otherwise wholesome life. But Daybell also declined to offer any mitigating evidence during the sentencing hearing. Mitigating evidence is often used to encourage jurors to have sympathy for a defendant in an effort to show that a life sentence would be more appropriate than capital punishment. Family members of the victims gave emotional statements to the jurors. J.J. Vallow's grandmother, Kay Woodcock, testified and tearfully described how the 7-year-old would show empathy and compassion to others through soft touches and by frequently asking if those around him were okay. She also said Tylee was a doting big sister and that it warmed her heart to see them together. "I can't express just how much I wish for more time to create memories," Woodcock said, beginning to weep. Vallow Daybell's oldest child, Colby Ryan, described what it was like to lose his entire family. His father died years earlier. Quote, "My 3 kids will never know the kindness of Tylee's heart or JJ's silly and goofy personality. The only way I could describe the impact of their lives being lost is like a nuclear bomb dropping. It's not an overstatement to say that I lost everything." To impose the death penalty, the jurors had to unanimously find that Daybell met at least one of the aggravating circumstances that state law says qualifies someone for capital punishment. They also had to agree that those aggravating factors weren't outweighed by any mitigating factors that might have lessened his culpability or justified a lesser sentence. Idaho law allows for execution by lethal injection or firing squad, though firing squad has never been used in the state. That is the story that crossed the wires this afternoon, the Associated Press wires, written by Rebecca Boone, a talented journalist, after the jury came back today and said Chad Daybell will die for killing his wife and J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. It is a day that many of us will never forget. It is a verdict that came after several hours of deliberation yesterday and several hours of deliberation this morning, and what a verdict it was. The judge had the clerk read the jury's decision, and then after some complicated language, Idaho state law language, it's kind of complicated, the judge kind of summarized exactly what this verdict meant. And here is what Judge Boyce said.
Ladies and gentlemen, the court will note that given the complexity of this special verdict form, just I think in fairness to all those in attendance, including in particular victims, and the parties, the layman's explanation of this verdict is that the jury has made a finding that it would be appropriate to impose the death penalty as it relates to counts 1 through 6 in the amended indictment. And so pursuant to Idaho Code 192515, the court is directed that the defendant would be sentenced to death on those counts. The court
then-
will take up a
Let me-
concluding sentencing proceeding. I also have additional counts of insurance fraud. I've discussed with counsel moving forward in a consolidated hearing. The court's proposing that we do that this morning, waiving the right to a pre-sentence investigation report under Criminal Rule 32A. Before I get there, just let me ask at this time of the jurors, is this your true and correct verdict that's been rendered in this case? Very well. Does the state wish to have the jury pulled on the special verdict form?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Does the defense wish to have the jury pulled on this special verdict form?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Very well.
Then there was still the issue of the insurance fraud. Chad Daybell was found guilty of 2 counts of insurance fraud. I mean, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what he gets on these charges because the death penalty obviously supersedes it, but legally you have to have a sentence. And rather than coming back in 3 months to Fremont County and having this sentence handed down, as Judge Boyce just said, they decided to do it today. So the court took a recess and then came back, and this is what the verdict was, the sentence was for those charges.
I would indicate for the record that in relation to the sentencing hearing, the sentencing portion handled yesterday, the state did make our best attempts to reach out to all statutory victims to allow them the opportunity to be heard by the court. And those that the court heard from yesterday were the ones that had wished to make impact statements. While not directly related to the insurance fraud, I did just want to make a clear record of that. In relation to the insurance fraud charges, in light of the sentence that has been imposed by this court and by the recommendation of the jury in relation to the other charges, the state would indicate we think that the victim statements covered everything the state could say. While the insurance charges again are attenuated to it, we've lost 3 individuals that the state can do nothing to bring them back. And so the best we can do is move forward in seeking justice on their behalves. In relation to the insurance counts themselves, given the sentences, we would recommend this court impose jail time and have that, or prison time, impose a sentence and run it concurrent with the imposition of the other sentence by this court. I believe they carry up to 15 years in prison. We'd recommend they run concurrent with each other and with the imposition of death in this case. We would also recommend restitution in the amount of $130,000 to LifeMap and $300,000 to Primerica. As part of that, we would also recommend a waiver of any fines or court costs in this matter in order to allow restitution to be paid if any money is available to go towards that.
All right, thank you for the state's sentencing recommendations. Mr. Pryor, does the defense wish to make sentencing recommendations as to, I'll do them collectively, counts 7 and 9, the insurance fraud counts?
No, Judge, there's nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, is there any objection to the requested restitution amounts of $130,000 and $300,000?
Judge, we may need to set that out at this point, but I'll let the court know if that changes.
All right, I'll permit 30 days for the scheduling of a contested hearing on restitution. If that becomes an issue, we could conduct that hearing most likely remotely on a Zoom hearing if it becomes an issue. At this time, I will ask, because I need to on these counts, before I impose any sentence, Mr. Daybell, you do have the right of allocution, which permits you to make a statement on your own behalf in any mitigation of these offenses. Is there any statement you would like to make before I proceed with sentencing on those counts?
No.
Very well. The court then, having considered the information previously referenced, finds that pursuant to Idaho Code 41293, which under subsection 4 indicates a penalty of up to 15 years of prison. On each of those 2 counts, the court is going to impose a prison sentence of 15 years. So a 15-year sentence will be imposed on count 7. The court will take under advisement the issue of restitution requested by the state. The court will not impose any fines.
So many of you have said, well, how in the world is he going to pay that back? He's not. They just have to have it on the record. And should he ever get any sort of money, he'll have to pay back those insurance companies. They're likely going to go after the people that got the money. I mean, they can't go after every place that Chad Daybell spent that money, but Chad Daybell is now on the hook for that. After the verdict was read, the prosecutor spoke publicly for the very first time since May of 2021 when the indictment was announced. And it was Lindsay Blake with Rob Wood and all of the police officers that day in the annex, the sheriff's office annex in Fremont County. And this day, all of them gathered outside the courthouse to address the media. And here is what Lindsay Blake and Rob Wood had to say.
Almost 5 years ago, the communities of Fremont and Madison County lost 3 wonderful human beings, Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and Tammy Daybell. As a Fremont prosecutor on this case, this has been a hard-fought battle for both the prosecution team and for the law enforcement agencies that worked tirelessly on this case and never gave up hope. This has been a tough case because of its complexity, both in telling the story of an investigation that spanned years and trying to figure out the best way to present it in a way that would make sense to others. As a prosecutor, I try a lot of criminal cases, but for me, as a new mom, the details of this one just hit differently, and I can't imagine the family's pain. I cannot express enough both my and Fremont County's deep appreciation, gratitude, and admiration for all those who have played a role in seeking and ultimately obtaining justice for the victims in this case. This case has been about speaking for and seeking justice for the lives of 3 wonderful humans whose lives were cut way too short by the selfish desires of the defendant and his co-defendant, Lori Vallow. We are pleased with the outcome and that justice has been served for the victims in this case. This has been a collective effort between multiple agencies working in collaboration to see this case through for the victims and their families. There are so many people who have been involved and helped behind the scenes, and every last one of them has been instrumental in obtaining justice. When I came into office in 2021, after discussing the case with others in Fremont County and collaborating with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, a decision was made to bring the case back to Fremont County because we felt strongly the case of JJ Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell should be combined and tried together. You heard from some of the victims' families how these 3 have been intertwined forever. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office was instrumental in the decision and support of the prosecutor's office in making that difficult decision. I cannot express enough Fremont County's gratitude to Rob Wood and the Madison County Prosecutor's Office. They started this case looking into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee. Then when the children's remains were discovered, Rob Wood stepped in without hesitation when my predecessor requested he take the case as a special prosecutor, and then ultimately agreed to combine resources to pursue justice for the victims in this case. A special thanks to Fremont County Deputy Prosecutors Rocky Wixom and Tanya Rawlings for their dedication and efforts in both this case and the case against Lori Vallow. The Attorney General's office in first taking on the prosecution of the murder of Tammy, and then by their agreement to allow us to have Deputy Attorney General Ingrid Beatty join the prosecution team. The FBI for stepping in without hesitation when the children were missing, with their extensive experience and their resources, and continuing to see this case through to the end. The Rexburg Police Department for starting the investigation into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee, and then never giving up the search. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office for their tenaciousness in pursuing the investigation into the death of Tammy Daybell. Arizona law enforcement for sharing everything they had uncovered and their willingness to come to testify in the cases here in Idaho. This became a joint investigation, a joint effort to find the children, and then ultimately to seek justice on their behalf. I have been absolutely amazed and astounded at the level of investigation, professionalism of the officers involved, and the camaraderie that has been formed. I tell them all the time, they make my job a lot easier. We extend our support to Arizona in their continued pursuit of justice for the additional victims, Charles Vallow and Brandon Boudreau. We also extend our immense gratitude to the jurors in this case who didn't sign up for this difficult process but agreed to perform their civic duty. And in rendering this verdict, we hope the victims and survivors of Chad Daybell know that the community as a whole does not tolerate the loss of 3 precious and irreplaceable human beings. We are hopeful that those who have been involved and affected by this case and the actions of the defendant and his co-conspirators can now begin to heal.
Four and a half years ago, Detective Ray Hermosillo walked into our office needing a warrant for what started as a simple search for a Jeep to help an investigation in Chandler, Arizona. This soon turned into a search for 2 young children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. That investigation merged with the death of Tammy Daybell. Very quickly, multiple law enforcement agencies and prosecutors' offices began working together diligently to find those missing children and determine what happened. Realizing the children's last residence was in Madison County, we began a child protection action to bring the children to safety. When it was clear that Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell had no interest in helping us locate Tylee and JJ, we took further action in filing charges against Lori and extradited her from Hawaii. The search for Tylee and JJ was nonstop. Every stone was unturned through the diligent team efforts of the Rexburg Police Department, Fremont County Sheriff's Office, the Idaho Attorney General investigators, the FBI, Chandler and Gilbert Police Departments. The willingness of so many different law enforcement agencies to work together and pool resources to obtain justice for these victims is unprecedented. All of these agencies work together with the single goal of justice in mind, and we cannot thank them enough. From the Madison County Prosecutor's Office, we are so grateful for the working relationship and partnership we've had with Lindsay Blake and everyone at the Fremont County Prosecutor's Office in obtaining justice, both in this trial and the trial against Lori Vallow. That includes not only Lindsay, her deputies Tanya Rawling, Rocky Wixom, and all their help staff. I'd also like to thank Ingrid Beatty for being here with us and the Attorney General for allowing her to work with us. And I want to say that Lindsay Blake's dedication to each of the victims in this case has been unwavering. Her willingness to take on this case when she took office, when she didn't have to, was absolutely courageous. It has been an honor to work with her. And I'd also like to thank members of the Madison County Prosecutor's Office who've helped on this case, prosecutors Spencer Rammel, Mackenzie Cole, and Rachel Smith, who've helped on this case. Today, justice was served for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. 3 innocent victims whose lives were tragically cut short by the selfish and cruel actions of Chad and Lori Daybell, who embarked on a path of destruction that irrevocably altered the lives of countless families and countless individuals. While nothing can undo the immense harm caused, we have worked tirelessly to secure a measure of justice for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. This week, a diligent and attentive Ada County jury carefully considered the evidence and presented and returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Last year, an Ada County jury did that for Lori Vallow Daybell as well. Pursuing justice in this case required the unwavering dedication of a large team of public servants who have devoted the last 4.5 years to ensuring we had the evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, we extend our deepest gratitude to all the committed law enforcement professionals from these agencies who have made tremendous personal sacrifices in the face of an emotionally and physically challenging case. We are indebted to them for their service. We also want to applaud the incredible strength and resilience of the victims and family members who, despite unimaginable grief, have stood with us these past 4.5 years in our pursuit of the truth. Their support has been invaluable. To all those who held Tylee, JJ, and Tammy in their hearts, we hope these verdicts bring a measure of healing and closure, and may the memory of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy continue to be a blessing to all who knew and loved them. Thank you.
Great statements there from both prosecutors, and great work. Great work to the prosecutors. I applaud them publicly, and I'm thankful for what they have done. I can't imagine the feeling that they have tonight. So just some back scene story here. I'm at CrimeCon in Nashville and at the Opryland. What's this called, honey? The Gaylord Opry. And I honestly don't even know how to find my room here. Erica has taken me. It's been so great here. Gaylord Hotels. We were down in the podcast creator area when I got several messages. Verdict is in, verdict is in. We rushed up to our room. This was me watching our television, the live stream on eastidahonews.com, as many of you were. As you can see, that was right when the verdict was coming down. I had a laptop in hand and the television was on. And then Erica took this picture kind of without me knowing. On the bed, lean back. Sorry, you got to see my feet. And we watched. And, I'll admit the wording that the judge had was a little bit confusing. I don't know if you felt that, because it was not just straight out, he's getting the death penalty. You had the clerk read through all of the charges and then explained then the judge explained this is basically what this means. I believe that we have.
This is an unauthorized visit into Courtroom Insider.
Come on in.
And I don't have to stay, but I do have to tell you that picture, I turned around to look at Nate and I could tell you were sweating the verdict to see what would come in. And I know he's supposed to be a news reporter and very neutral, but I could tell he was foot twitching, a little anxious about what would happen.
I was. I didn't know which way the jury was going to go. I
don't need to stay.
Oh, no, it's okay. What do you want to say? What were your thoughts? We're coming on early tonight because we have to leave in about 15 minutes to go do something. But tomorrow night we'll do a full Courtroom Insider from Idaho. I'll be back in Idaho, in Boise.
Yes. We talked about that. When the verdict came in, we were running back to our room to make sure that we could see it. And I just had this gut feeling that it would be death. After they said it, I felt like every time Judge Boyce said, no, the jury doesn't feel it's unjust to give this man the death penalty, it does seem fitting. And I realized that the way that the death penalty works in Idaho, that he may pass away before he ever is actually put to death. And who knows what will happen there. But I do think it was appropriate in what happened. And speaking to Summer Shiflet today and other things, I think the jury made the right call. That's a tough position I would never want to be put in, but
Summer's pleased with it. She said that, and I've spoken with other families. They feel it was kind of a relief, but wow, the jury obviously said this is the most serious sentence for the most serious of crimes. There can be nothing more serious. No way. He will appeal. I mean, there will be appeals for a long time, but for now, he's going to death row. He'll be there. Yeah. I don't know if that's immediately. I don't know the procedures. Someone has not received the death sentence since 2017, so it could be a little bit of time before we understand all the procedures and everything, but he is going for death row. And Chad Daybell said nothing at all during the mitigation time when he could have asked for leniency. He could have apologized. He could have said something. He didn't say anything last week when the defense was putting on their defense, or 2 weeks ago, whatever that was. His children didn't say anything. No one stood up on his behalf. Nobody, not even himself. So that's what we have for tonight. I was trying to get up I think we have some new photos coming in from the courtroom this afternoon, or from when the sentencing came down. I don't have those quite yet, so we'll get those and we'll share them with you probably later. And then I do want to say that tomorrow night, Summer Shiflet I will have an interview with Summer Shiflet. We did CrimeCon today. I guess we could talk a minute about that. Summer, we went on the stage to a packed room. To those of you that were there, thank you for coming. We spoke for an hour. She took questions for about 10 minutes. We had so much to say. We didn't get through anywhere near all of it. If you were there, we'd love to know your thoughts. But of course, with this verdict coming down hours before we hit the stage, that was on everybody's mind. But her reaction was...
It was interesting to hear. It was interesting to hear the session. Many people got very emotional in this session. The phone call that many of you probably have heard between Summer and her sister Lori. And as much as I've thought about this case with Nate in the past few years, I believe Summer when she was saying, you just never think, I would never think in a million years that my sister could do something like that. And what a close bond you have, most of you, with your family. Hopefully you have that. That you wouldn't even be able to fathom the kind of thing that happened. And I really felt for her when she was speaking up there. Anyway, I thought it was interesting to hear from a victim's family and see that perspective, because her niece and nephew were murdered. And that's a tough thing to go up and stand in front of a group of people
and talk about. And, her brother did the killings, some of them, and her sister, and she said that, and, she was willing to take questions from the crowd and willing to answer those. So tomorrow night, I don't have that interview, but afterwards, she was willing to come and do another interview, and I'm going to play that for you tomorrow night. We don't have time to get it edited. I'm not going to edit it, but we don't have time to get it ready for tonight because we have some other events. But tomorrow night, 6:30 Mountain Daylight Time, Courtroom Insider. I'll be back in Boise. And then I'm hoping to maybe hear if a juror or two wants to talk. If you know of a juror who served on the case, they want to talk. No pressure, but I'd love to sit down with them and visit with them. I've spoken, obviously, with Laura, juror number 4 in Lori Vallow's case. I spoke with Saul Hernandez, who was a juror in the Vallow case, and also Tom Evans, who was a juror. I'd love to talk. So feel free to reach out to me if you know them and they're willing to talk. And, I'm not going to go knock on all their doors and, beg them to speak to me, but I am here and willing to share their stories and let you know, what happened, what they have to say.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Not tonight.
Been a long day, emotional day, I know, for so many people.
This man deserves a good nap that he's going to take when he gets home this week.
We're going to go moderate a session now with a world-renowned court sketch artist who's covered the Michael Jackson, O.J. Simpson, Carol Burnett, the Charles Manson, all these cases. He's 90. He's 90 years old, and he's covered all these cases. And tonight, people like Erica, not me, she's going to join a group of around 400 people. They're going to do a court sketch art. They're going to show an image on the screen, and this artist, Bill Roble, is going to walk the audience through how to do a court sketch. And then they get to keep the sketches or display them. They're going to put up in a little art gallery here.
I don't know that mine will be worthy of keeping.
It will be very worthy. I'm not going to draw. I'm going to have a microphone in my hand, and I'm going to talk to people because I know how to talk, and that's my only talent.
In case I probably won't come on for another Courtroom Insider, so I just want to say thank you. Well, I mean,
maybe next week. I think we'll do a wrap up next week from home.
We will see, but I just want to say thank you to all of you that have cared about Tammy and JJ and Tylee and Charles, to be able to follow this case and to feel what the families feel. It's nice to know that there are people that care out there, especially when you're day in and day out hearing about the terrible things that occurred. So thank you as a personal note.
Yeah, and thank you for watching, and thanks Erica for coming on every night that we're together, every night that we can.
Yes, it will be nice to have Nate home. So I have shared him with you for a little bit, but we're going to reclaim him for a little while.
Yes. I do want to end with
Let's say I'm working
tonight.
on a research paper
Not
about
that.
the future.
This is a little video that I put together. And we'll end with this, and then we'll see you tomorrow night, 6:30 Mountain, for one of the final Courtroom Insiders, at least on this case.